Greetings, I'm Jana with Purl Together, and in this week's short technique video, I want to show you how to measure your gauge or your stitches per inch when you're knitting a swatch that is garter stitch. And garter stitch, if you recall, just means knitting both rows back and forth, so it makes that bumpy fabric, whereas stockinette stitch or stocking stitch is when you have knit on one side and purl on the other side. So garter stitch is knit both on the front side and the back side, and it makes this bumpy fabric. So sometimes it's a little challenging to measure your gauge, but we have a mystery knit along coming up, and you're gonna need to know your gauge in garter stitch for that. So if you're interested to learn about the mystery knit along, I'll put a link down below where you can get all the information from my friend Amba O'Brien. She is an Australian knitwear designer. She's fantastic. You can get more information down below. And a mystery knit along is where you get the pattern and then you cast on and you get one clue each week. So go check out the link down below if you're interested in that. It's a ton of fun. I'll be making some tutorial videos to help you along the way, so don't be shy about that. But you are going to want to know how to measure your gauge in garter stitch. All right, before we get started, I want to give a big thank you to some new patrons that we've had in the last couple of weeks. Thanks so much for supporting the channel. I couldn't bring you videos each and every week without your help. So thanks so much to Wendy, Gail, Jayleen, and Michaela. Thanks so much for supporting the channel. If you want to know how you can help out, purltogether.com, go to patreon.com/purltogether. Head on over there and you can see what I'm offering as a reward and a thank you for your small monthly pledge. All right, let's get started. Okay, I've got just a simple dishcloth going here. This pattern is Grandma's favorite dishcloth. I'll put it in the link down below. And I'm knitting some of these for my own kitchen, but I also thought it'd be a handy way to show you, just because of the variegation and the difference in tones, you can easily see the garter stitch pattern. So if we want to count our gauge, you'll see we have the top row of these upper arches here, and then we have bottom ones. Now, I call these rainbows and potholes. So the ones on the top are the rainbows, obviously. The ones on the bottom are the potholes. When you're counting garter stitch rows, you don't want to count both. You just pick one. Either you're counting rainbows or you're counting potholes, depending on what appeals more to you. And the reason for that is you can follow this stitch with me, and you can see that this goes around the bottom, round the pothole, and then it comes up and around into that upper stitch and back down. So that is, if I'm counting these blue stitches, darker blue stitches, you can see how the lighter blue is part of the stitch below, in the row below. So that's why you don't count both. So just choose one and count the bumps across as you're measuring. So I'm going to get out my handy Susan Bates knit check. These are available like at any box store. And you can tell that this is going to be pretty straightforward to see in the window that is 2 inches across. So I like to put the potholes right down here on the corner, on the very corner, and I line up everything along the potholes. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.5-ish. That could be 8 1/4, could be 8 1/2. What I prefer to do when I'm counting any gauge, whether this is knitting a swatch and stockinette or a garter stitch gauge, is I like to count so that I end up with a whole stitch on a whole inch. Let me show you what I mean by that. So let's count rainbows this time, and we're going to line this up right here on the very edge of this first rainbow. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. I count until I get to an even inch and a full stitch. So that's 13 stitches in 3 inches. 13 stitches in 3 inches. So if we do the math, that should end up being 4.3333 stitches per inch. So that's 4 1/3. 1, 2, 3, 4 1/3. Now if you look at that, you can tell that's about 1/3 of a stitch, right? But we don't know that for sure, whether that's 25% of that stitch or 30%, 33% of that stitch, until we get all the way out here. So you need to count enough of them to accurately determine your gauge stitches per inch. I hope that makes sense. But I wanted you to notice the difference between the rainbows and potholes, and know that you just need to count one, not both, of those garter stitch bumps. Hey, thanks for watching. If you find these videos helpful, click the thumbs up, consider subscribing, share with your friends, and if you can, become a patron. I'd love to see you in our patron family. Thanks for watching.